Ethan Walker lived alone on a wide stretch of land at the edge of the frontier. Most days were quiet and predictable for him. He fed his cattle, fixed his fences, checked the water wells, and ended the evening by sitting on his porch with a cup of warm coffee. He didn't mind the silence. He had grown used to it over the years. Many people said loneliness was hard, but for Ethan, it felt familiar. He had lost both his parents early and had no family left, except the land they once cared for. One late afternoon, as the sun began to sink behind the mountains, Ethan rode out to check the far side of his ranch. The sky was turning orange, and long shadows stretched across the dry grass. He expected nothing unusual, but as he guided his horse down a narrow trail near a rocky ravine, he suddenly heard a faint sound. At first it was so soft he thought it was only the wind brushing against the rocks, but then it came again, weak, shaky, and filled with distress. It was a cry for help. Ethan stopped his horse immediately. He listened carefully. The cry came again, this time clearer, though still faint. It was the voice of a young woman. He urged his horse forward and followed the sound until he reached the edge of the ravine. The path was steep, and the rocks were uneven. He tied his horse to a tree and climbed down carefully. As he moved farther in, he finally saw her. A young native woman lay trapped under a pile of fallen branches. Her long dark hair was tangled, and her clothes were dusty from the fall. One of her legs was pinned beneath a heavy branch. She was breathing quickly, trying to free herself, but clearly too weak to move the weight. When she heard Ethan's footsteps, she tried to sit up in fear, but pain forced her back down. Ethan raised his hands gently to show he meant no harm. He spoke softly. "It's all right. I'm here to help you." The woman watched him with wide, worried eyes. She was scared. Any person in her situation would be, but she didn't refuse his help. Maybe it was the calmness in his voice. Maybe it was that she had no other choice. He approached slowly, testing each step so the rocks wouldn't slide. When he reached her, he knelt beside her and examined the branches. "You're stuck pretty badly," he said, "but I can lift this off you. It might hurt a little when it moves." She nodded silently. Her eyes showed pain but also trust. Ethan placed both hands under the thick branch, took a deep breath, and pushed with all his strength. The branch shifted, rolled to the side, and finally freed her leg. The woman gasped sharply, clutching the dirt. Her leg was bruised and swollen but not broken. Ethan could tell she wouldn't be able to walk on it. He removed the smaller branches around her and helped her sit up slowly. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried, but her leg buckled instantly, and she nearly fell again. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. She looked embarrassed but also grateful. "Don't worry," he said kindly. "Let's get you out of here." Ethan knew he couldn't leave her alone in the ravine. Night was approaching, and the temperature would drop soon. He lifted her gently into his arms. She was light, and he carried her up the rocky slope carefully, making sure not to slip. When he reached the top, he placed her on the soft grass and untied his horse. The woman watched him quietly, still unsure of his intentions. Ethan spoke first, trying to ease her fear. "My name is Ethan Walker. I live just a short ride from here. You're hurt, and the night will get cold. You need warmth and water. Let me take you to my cabin." She hesitated. "My people, they might look for me. They'll find signs of where you went," Ethan said gently. "Or they might come to my place in the morning. But right now, you need rest." Her eyes lowered. She knew he was right. She nodded slightly. Ethan mounted his horse and helped her sit in front of him carefully so her injured leg wouldn't be pressed. As they rode back, she held onto the saddle, still tense from the unfamiliar situation. Ethan kept his arms loose, making sure she didn't feel trapped. The path was slow, but the sky was turning darker with every minute. When they reached his cabin, a simple wooden structure surrounded by quiet fields, he helped her down carefully. She leaned on him for support, but tried not to put too much weight on him. Ethan guided her inside and sat her on a wooden chair beside the fireplace. The cabin was small but warm. There was a fire already burning from earlier, casting a soft glow. Ethan grabbed a clean cloth and a small bowl of water. He knelt beside her and gently cleaned the dirt from her injured leg. She watched him silently, her expression softening just a little. "You'll be all right," he said. "It's just bruised. It needs rest." She nodded. "Thank you." Her voice was quiet but sincere. Ethan warmed a blanket near the fire, then draped it around her shoulders. He poured her a cup of warm water and handed it to her. She held it with both hands, still studying him with cautious curiosity. "What's your name?" Ethan asked, softly. After a brief pause, she answered, "Naya." It was a beautiful name, and Ethan said it with care. "Naya." She looked around the cabin slowly. Everything was neat, simple, and without signs of anyone else living there. She noticed the extra blanket folded on the bed, the stack of books on the small table, and a few hand-carved figures Ethan had made over the years. "You live alone?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan replied. She lowered her eyes again, thinking. It must have been strange for her, being in a stranger's home, unable to walk, unsure what tomorrow would bring. Ethan understood this, so he tried to give her space. After making sure she had everything she needed, he stepped back. "You can rest on the bed," he said. "It's better for your leg. I'll sleep outside on the porch." She looked up quickly. "You don't have to do that." "I do," he said gently. "You're hurt, and you need the bed more than I do. Besides, I'm used to sleeping out there." Naya didn't argue again. Ethan helped her stand, guiding her to the bed. She sat down slowly, wincing a little from the pain in her leg. He gave her one last blanket and stepped away. Just before he walked out, he glanced back. She was looking at him, not with fear now, but with quiet gratitude. Outside, the night had fully settled. The air was cool, and the stars shone above the dark fields. Ethan sat on the porch with his old coat wrapped around him. He shouldn't have felt anything toward the young woman inside his cabin. He barely knew her. But something about the way she trusted him reminded him of the kind of man he wanted to be. Someone steady. Someone who helped without expecting anything in return. Inside the cabin, Naya lay awake for a long time. She replayed the moment when the branch pinned her down. She remembered thinking she might not survive the night. Then she remembered the calm voice of the rancher who appeared when she needed help the most. She touched the blanket he had placed over her and felt the warmth of the fire he kept burning for her comfort. She wondered why an outsider would care so much. As the fire crackled softly, both of them drifted into a quiet sleep. Ethan on the porch under the open sky, and Naya in his cabin, safe for the first time since her accident. Neither knew what the next morning would bring. Neither knew that the rescue was only the beginning. The world outside their small cabin was already changing, and the people searching for Naya were much closer than either of them realized. But for now, in the calm of the night, there was only warmth, safety, and the first spark of trust between two lives that had never crossed paths until today. The sun rose slowly over the open fields, sending soft golden light across Ethan's ranch. Morning always came quietly in this place, with only the sounds of birds and the soft rustle of wind through the grass. Ethan woke up on the porch after a long night, stretching his tired arms. His coat was damp from the early morning dew, but he didn't complain. His first thought was of the young woman resting inside his cabin. He stood up and brushed the dust from his clothes. When he stepped into the cabin, he found Naya sitting on the edge of the bed. She was awake, though she still looked worn out. Her injured leg was stretched out, and she was trying to wrap the blanket around herself more firmly. "You should rest more," Ethan said kindly. Naya looked up at him with a soft expression. I heard something. Horses, maybe. Ethan paused and listened. At first, he heard only the wind. Then, faintly, he caught the distant sound of hooves, steady, rhythmic, and approaching fast. He stepped to the window and looked toward the far ridge. A group of riders was coming, shadows moving quickly across the land. They must be your people, Ethan said quietly. Naya's breath caught. She tried to stand but felt pain shoot up her leg. Ethan helped her sit back down gently. They may think something wrong, she said with worry in her voice. They don't know what happened. We'll tell them the truth, Ethan said. But even he felt unsure. He didn't know how the tribe would react to finding their princess in a stranger's cabin. He hoped they would listen. The sound of hooves grew louder, and within minutes the riders came into full view, nearly a dozen tribal warriors, strong and skilled. Their horses moved with purpose, kicking up dust as they approached Ethan's cabin. Leading them was a tall man with sharp eyes and a powerful presence. He carried himself with authority. Naya whispered softly, "My father." Ethan nodded, understanding instantly. This was Chief Ohan, the leader of Naya's tribe. The riders stopped in front of the cabin. Ethan walked outside slowly, both hands raised to show he had no harmful intent. He kept his voice calm and steady. "She's inside," he said. "She's hurt, but safe." The chief's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the air felt tense enough to cut. The warriors looked ready to act if their leader gave a single command. Naya tried to stand again, leaning on the doorframe. "Father," she called out, her voice shaky. Chief Ohan dismounted immediately and rushed toward her. Ethan stepped aside, giving the father space. Ohan reached Naya and touched her shoulders gently, checking her condition. He looked at her injured leg, then at the bandages Ethan had wrapped around it. "Did he do this?" Ohan asked, his voice deep but controlled. "Yes," Naya answered. "He saved me." The chief turned to Ethan, his expression unreadable. Then he studied the ground, the surroundings, the horse tracks, the place where Ethan had slept outside the door. He saw everything without needing to be told. "You found her alone?" Ohan asked. Ethan explained everything clearly. The cry for help, the fallen branches, her injury, bringing her here because night had fallen. The chief listened closely, his expression softening slightly with each detail, but some of the warriors still looked distrustful. Naya spoke again, wanting to make everything clear. "He helped me. Without him, I would not be here." Her words carried weight. The chief placed a hand on her forehead gently, like a father relieved his child was safe. Then he looked at Ethan again, this time with respect. "You have done a great kindness," Ohan said, "one that will not be forgotten." Ethan nodded humbly. Anyone would have done the same, but the chief shook his head. "Not everyone stops for a stranger. Not everyone risks themselves." The warriors lifted Naya carefully, helping her onto a soft cloth so she wouldn't hurt her leg. As she was carried toward the horses, she kept looking back at Ethan. She didn't want to leave without saying more, but the moment moved too fast. Before mounting his horse, Chief Ohan turned to Ethan once more. "You will see us again," he said. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He only nodded. The tribe left, their horses riding in one long line across the field. Ethan stood outside his cabin until their figures disappeared over the ridge. Only when the last shadow faded did he finally breathe deeply. The cabin felt strangely empty when he stepped back inside. The blanket on the bed still carried the warmth of where Naya had slept. Her faint footprints were on the floorboards. It felt as though a piece of the world had shifted, yet Ethan didn't fully understand why. He spent the rest of the morning repairing a fence, trying to focus on his chores. But he kept thinking about Naya, how calm her voice sounded even when she was in pain, how she thanked him, how her father looked at him with something like recognition. There was something in her presence he couldn't forget. The day grew warmer, and Ethan returned to his cabin for lunch. The silence felt heavier than usual. He sat at the table, pushing his food around without really eating. His mind stayed on the tribe's last words, "You will see us again." What did that mean? Would they come to repay him? Or was it something else? As the sun moved higher in the sky, he walked outside and checked the fields again, trying to distract himself. But every direction he looked reminded him of the moment he found Naya in the ravine. The image stayed clear in his eyes. By late afternoon, Ethan sat on his porch, letting the warm wind brush against him. He watched the distant mountains and wondered what Naya was doing now. Was she safe in her village? Was her leg healing? Did she tell them everything that happened? Little did he know that in the tribal camp, Naya was doing exactly that. She sat near her family's tent with her father beside her. She told the elders how Ethan treated her with care, how he slept outside to give her space, how he never once crossed any line or made her feel unsafe. Her father listened with pride in his eyes, not pride for himself, but for the character of the man who had saved his daughter. One of the elders spoke. "A man like that is rare, a stranger who helps without expecting anything." Another elder nodded. "Such actions deserve honor." The chief tapped his fingers on his knee, thinking deeply. He did not speak for a long time, but when he finally did, his voice was certain. "We will visit him again," Ohan said. "Not to question him, to make a proposal." The elders exchanged looks of interest. Naya felt her heart jump. She wanted to know what her father meant, but she kept quiet out of respect. "We will decide as a people," one elder added. That night, as the tribe sat around the fire, the council discussed their options. They talked about the rancher, his act of kindness, his honesty, and the unusual courage he showed in helping someone from a different world than his own. For the tribe, bonds of trust were sacred. A man who showed such heart was not someone to ignore. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Ethan fed his horse and stepped inside the cabin for the night. He lit the lantern, but the warm glow didn't comfort him the way it usually did. The cabin felt too quiet. He found himself looking again at the blanket Naya had used, then at the spot where he had placed a chair for her, and finally at the door where she had leaned while speaking to her father. He didn't know why the memory stayed so strong. Maybe because helping her reminded him of who he truly wanted to be. Maybe because she had looked at him with trust even in her pain. Before blowing out the lantern, he whispered softly to himself, "I hope she's all right." He didn't know that Naya, miles away under the night sky of her tribe's camp, whispered almost the same words. As dawn approached again, both Ethan and Naya slept lightly, each thinking about the other. One as a memory of quiet kindness, the other as the person who saved her when danger felt close. They didn't know what the next sunrise would bring, but both felt that the story between them was far from over. And they were right. The next day the tribe would return, not with anger or suspicion, but with something unexpected, something that would change Ethan's life far more than he ever imagined. Ethan woke up early the next morning, just as the first soft glow of sunlight touched the horizon. He washed his face, fed his animals, and tried to begin his morning as usual, but something felt different in the air. He couldn't explain it, but there was a strange stillness around his ranch, as if the land itself was waiting for something. He kept glancing toward the distant ridge where Naya's tribe had vanished the previous day. It was impossible not to think about her. Every time he blinked, he saw her calm eyes, her pain when she tried to stand, and the quiet gratitude in her voice. He wondered how she was doing, if her leg had stopped hurting, if she was resting comfortably, if she told her people everything. He didn't expect to see the tribe again so soon, and he surely didn't expect what would happen next. By mid-morning, Ethan was repairing a broken fence post near his barn when he felt a soft tremor under his boots. At first, he thought it was only his imagination, but then the tremor grew stronger. He turned slowly toward the open field, and his heart skipped. A long line of riders was moving toward his ranch. They were not charging, not coming with anger, just riding steadily, calmly, in a quiet formation. Ethan recognized the tall leader in front, Chief Ohan. Several elders rode behind him along with warriors who watched the surroundings with alert eyes. But this time, they didn't carry tension in their posture. Their faces looked serious but calm, almost respectful. Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans, breathed deeply, and stepped forward to meet them. He reminded himself to stay calm. Whatever they wanted, he would face it honestly. The riders slowed as they approached and finally stopped a few feet from the ranch house. Chief Ohan dismounted first, followed by two elders. They exchanged glances before the chief stepped forward. Ethan greeted them politely. "Good morning." "Good morning, Ethan Walker," Chief Ohan said, using his full name with surprising familiarity. His tone carried a sense of purpose. "We come to you today with intention, not with suspicion." Ethan nodded, unsure what to expect. The chief continued, "Naya is safe, and her injury is healing well. She spoke of your kindness, your respect, and your decision to sleep outside to give her comfort." Ethan shook his head modestly. It was the right thing to do. "Many know the right thing," an elder said softly, "but not everyone chooses it." Chief Ohan stepped closer. His eyes, strong and wise, studied Ethan deeply, as if he was trying to measure the man standing before him. "We are here," the chief said, "to make you a proposal. One our council agreed on after much discussion." Ethan's heartbeat picked up. "A proposal?" "Yes." The chief's voice grew firm but respectful. "In our tradition, saving a person's life, especially the life of one who carries responsibility to our people, is not a small action. It carries weight. It creates a bond that cannot be ignored." Ethan swallowed, unsure what that meant. He hoped he wasn't about to be asked something impossible. Chief Ohan gestured for the elders to come closer. One of them spoke gently. "You are a man who acted with honesty. You had power over a wounded person and chose goodness instead of selfishness. Such a heart deserves honor." Another elder added, "Our tribe has long believed in building bridges, not walls. Your action showed us that there are good people beyond our lands, people worth trusting." Ethan listened carefully. Everything they said sounded meaningful, but he still didn't know what they wanted from him. Then the chief finally revealed it. "We wish to offer you a place of trust among our people," Ohan said. "A role of friendship and alliance. We want you to become a man connected to our tribe, not as a warrior, not as a leader, but as someone tied to us through respect." Ethan blinked slowly. This was far more than he expected. I don't know what to say," he admitted honestly. "There is more," the chief said calmly. Ethan's heart tightened. Ohan continued, "Our tribe believes in bonds between families, bonds that bring strength. For saving my daughter, the council decided to offer something rare, something we do not offer lightly." The air felt heavy and still. "We wish to create a family alliance between you and our people," the chief said. "A symbolic connection built on trust and honor." Ethan felt his breath catch. "Family? Alliance?" One elder nodded. "It is a gesture of great respect, a way to show you are no longer a stranger to us." Before Ethan could speak, he heard movement behind the chief. A young woman stepped forward from among the riders. It was Naya. She leaned on a light wooden staff for support, her injured leg still healing, but she stood tall despite the discomfort. Her eyes met Ethan's, and there was no fear, only warmth, recognition, and something gentle that hadn't been there before. Ethan felt the world go quiet around him. Naya spoke softly, her voice carrying across the space between them. My father and the elders told me about their decision. I wanted to be here when they spoke to you. Ethan nodded slowly. How are you feeling? She smiled faintly. Better because of you. Chief Ohan cleared his throat, bringing the focus back. The alliance we speak of does not force anything. It does not demand anything. It is simply an offer, our tribute to you for what you did for my daughter. Ethan finally found his voice. But why me? I just did what anyone should do. The chief shook his head. Many men would have left her. Many would have taken advantage of her weakness. Many would have tried to gain something for themselves. But you did none of those things. You acted with honor. An elder added, honor is rare. When we see it, we value it. Naya spoke again, her voice softer. I told them everything. How you carried me, how you gave me water, how you stayed outside in the cold porch so I could rest without fear. My people see that as something very meaningful. Ethan's chest felt tight with emotion. He didn't know how to respond to such deep gratitude. The chief continued, there are two parts to our proposal. You may choose only one, or choose none. We will respect your decision. 2 parts? Ethan asked carefully. Yes. The first is simple, Ohan said. We offer friendship, trust, and alliance, a permanent bond between your ranch and our tribe. We will help you when needed, and you will be seen as a friend of our people. Ethan felt relief. That part seemed reasonable. The second, the chief added, is more personal. It involves a deeper bond, a family connection. Ethan's heart thumped again. Naya looked down for a moment, then met his eyes with courage. The chief said, we offer a family tie through Naya. If she agrees, and if you agree, not as pressure, not as a command, but as a path, should both hearts accept it someday. Ethan froze. He didn't know what to say. He respected Naya deeply, admired her bravery, her calm strength. But he also knew that decisions like this carried meaning far beyond simple words. Before he could speak, Naya stepped forward slightly, leaning on her staff. She said gently, my people believe that bonds formed through life-saving kindness are rare, but you do not have to choose anything today, and you do not have to choose me. Ethan swallowed. This is a lot. I know, she said softly, and we do not rush you. The chief nodded. Think, understand, then decide. Whatever your choice, we will stand by it. Ethan took a deep breath. The weight of their proposal felt heavy but respectful. They were not forcing him, only offering honor. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice steady but emotional. I need time, not to avoid you, just time to understand what this means. That is all we ask, the chief said. Naya smiled gently, relief visible in her eyes. The tribe prepared to leave, giving Ethan space to breathe and think. Before she mounted her horse, Naya looked back at him one last time. You saved my life, she said quietly. And whatever comes next, I am grateful for you. Ethan watched the riders depart, feeling overwhelmed by everything he had just heard. His heart was racing, his thoughts tangled. He knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same again. Ethan spent the rest of the day in quiet thought. He walked across his land, checked on his animals, fixed small things around the ranch. But none of it felt the same as before. His mind kept returning to the chief's words, the elder's respectful tone, and Naya's gentle eyes when she spoke to him. He had never been offered anything like that before. Friendship with an entire tribe, trust from people who guarded their traditions closely, and a deeper bond that he didn't know how to handle yet. When the sun began to lower behind the hills, the ranch looked peaceful, but inside Ethan's chest, everything felt uncertain. He sat on the porch with a cup of warm water, letting the cool evening breeze pass across his face. He thought about his life before all of this. It had been simple, predictable, quiet, maybe too quiet. He had accepted loneliness as part of who he was. He didn't even realize how empty the days felt sometimes, until Naya entered his life for those few hours. Now, everything felt different. As night settled slowly, Ethan tried to listen to the sounds around him. Crickets, the soft rustling of grass, the distant call of an owl, but even nature's calm didn't quiet his heart. The tribe's offer was not something small. It wasn't just a handshake or a thank you. It was something that could shape his future. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine what each path meant. If he accepted the alliance alone, he would gain the respect of the tribe and create a bridge between two worlds. That was meaningful. But if he accepted the deeper bond, something involving Naya, his life would change in ways he couldn't predict. He admired her strength, her calmness, her determination to stand even when she was hurt. But he didn't want to rush into something he didn't fully understand. He finally fell asleep late, sitting on the porch with his back against the wooden railing. His dreams were filled with quiet images of Naya, her voice, her bravery, the way she had looked back at him when leaving with her tribe. The next morning, Ethan woke up with a clear thought. He needed to see her again, not because of the tribe's proposal, but because he wanted to hear her voice and understand what she felt. He saddled his horse, unsure whether it was the right thing to do, but trusting his heart. He rode for hours, following the faint tracks left by the tribe. The land grew more forested, the air cooler. As he reached the outskirts of the tribe's land, he slowed his horse. He knew he needed to show respect, so he dismounted and walked the rest of the way. A young scout quickly noticed him and approached cautiously. "You come alone?" the scout asked. "Yes," Ethan said gently. "I wish to speak with Chief Ohan and Naya, if possible." The scout looked into Ethan's eyes as if judging his sincerity, then nodded and guided him forward. When Ethan entered the tribal camp, people paused to look at him, not with suspicion but with curiosity and recognition. Children watched him from behind their mothers, elders whispered softly, warriors nodded politely. Ethan felt out of place but not unwelcome. Chief Ohan stepped out from his tent, his presence strong and calm. "Ethan Walker," he greeted. "We did not expect you so soon." "I know," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I wanted to understand things better, not just in my mind, but in my heart." The chief nodded with understanding. He gestured toward a shaded area where they could sit. Ethan explained honestly how he felt, how honored he was by their offer, how deeply he respected their traditions, and how he didn't want to agree or refuse without truly thinking about what it meant. Ohan listened patiently, his expression serious but kind. "We knew this would not be an easy decision," he said softly. "That is why we did not pressure you. A man must accept honor with peace in his heart, not confusion." Ethan nodded. "I want to be sure. Not just for myself, but for your people. And for Naya." When he spoke her name, he felt nervous, but he meant every word. The chief looked at him closely as though trying to understand the depth of Ethan's feelings. Without a word, Ohan stood and called for someone. A moment later, Naya appeared from behind a tent, walking slowly but steadily with her wooden staff. She looked surprised to see Ethan, but also happy in a quiet, gentle way. "You came," she said softly. "Yes," Ethan answered. "I wanted to see you." Naya sat down near him, her eyes full of curiosity and warmth. Her leg was still healing, but she carried herself with the same strength he admired from the beginning. The chief gave them space, stepping aside so they could speak openly. Naya looked at Ethan, her voice calm but sincere. "I know the proposal must have confused you. I felt the same when my father first told me. I told him that you should choose only if you feel peace inside, not because you feel forced. That means a lot to me, Ethan said. I want to be honest with you. I'm grateful for your trust. I respect you deeply, but I'm still learning what this bond means to your people. I want to understand it fully. Naya nodded. Then we will help you understand. She explained gently that the tribe did not see the deeper bond as a demand or an obligation. It was not something forced. It was simply a path, a connection built on honor and goodwill. She told Ethan how rare it was for an outsider to be offered such trust. It is not something that binds you instantly, she said. It is something that grows slowly, naturally, if both hearts choose it. Ethan felt a sense of relief. I would like that. Not rushed, not forced. Naya smiled, a soft, warm smile that reached her eyes. Then you are already halfway there? For the rest of the afternoon, Naya walked with Ethan through her tribe's land. She showed him the gardens, the places where children played, the small stream where women washed clothes, and the quiet spots where elders sat and told stories. Everywhere she took him, people greeted him kindly. They recognized him as the man who saved their chief's daughter, and that alone carried tremendous respect. Ethan felt something warm growing in his heart. He saw the tribe's kindness, their unity, their deep sense of community. It touched him more than he expected. Later, Chief Ohan invited Ethan to join their evening meal. The campfire glowed softly, and the tribe gathered in a circle. The chief thanked Ethan again for his courage and kindness, and the elders gave him a small carved wooden token, a symbol of trust. When Ethan accepted it, the entire tribe nodded respectfully, marking the beginning of his connection to them. As the night grew darker, Naya sat beside Ethan. She looked up at the stars and spoke in a soft voice. You do not have to decide everything today, but I want you to know this. I'm grateful for you, truly. Ethan's heart felt steady for the first time in days. I'm grateful for you too, he said. After the meal, Chief Ohan walked Ethan back to his horse. The chief placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder and said, Whatever you choose, you will always have a place among us. Those words stayed with Ethan all the way home. When he reached his ranch late that night, he held the carved wooden token in his hand. The symbol of his connection to the tribe felt warm, as if carrying part of their spirit. He stood on his porch, looked up at the sky, and felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The tribe's offer didn't frighten him anymore. It didn't feel strange or overwhelming. It felt like a new beginning, something that had entered his life because he had chosen kindness when he heard a cry for help. Ethan didn't know what the future would hold, how his bond with the tribe would grow, or how his connection with Naya would deepen. But he knew one thing for certain. His life was no longer empty. It was filled with possibility, with respect, with friendship, and maybe one day something more. The rancher who once lived alone no longer felt alone. A single act of kindness had opened a path toward a new chapter, one built on honor, trust, and the quiet understanding between a rancher and a brave young woman whose life he had saved. And that was only the beginning.